Welcome to Not Your Ordinary Parts, a podcast where we talk about hard things associated with the human experience, the goal of increasing awareness, growth, and healing. You may hear from professionally licensed therapists, life coaches, healers, doctors, etc. This information is not medical advice or therapy and is not meant to replace actual therapy or instructions given by a doctor or personal therapist. I'm your host, Jalon Johnson. My guest today is Katie Gray. Katie is a writer, singer, counselor, and elder caregiver whose work is devoted to helping people who are hurting. After a 17-year journey through bulimia, food addiction, and a full self-led recovery, Katie created The Empowered Heart, a trauma-informed methodology that guides others toward profound emotional and spiritual healing. Katie is the author of The Journey of the Empowered Heart and The Empowered Heart Guidebook, and she hosts the Empowered Heart podcast, where she hosts space for raw, honest, and deeply compassionate conversations about pain, truth, and transformation. Katie's work is a sanctuary for the tender, the searching, and the silently suffering, an invitation to come home to yourself, not through performance or perfection, but through presence, self-inquiry, and grace. So Katie, welcome to the show, and thank you so much for being my guest.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so grateful to be here. It feels really warm and inviting.
I'm glad you're here. And I did give a brief introduction, but so that the audience can get to know you a little bit better, would you mind giving us a little bit of background about yourself and how you got to who and where you are today?
Yeah, that's a big question, a big answer. And yet, I think I'm one of us. I'm a fellow human who's on the journey, through the experience of life that will inevitably include trauma and hardship and pain. And I have spent a lot of time interacting directly with suffering, with my own experience of suffering. And since my recovery and my healing, have devoted myself, my time, my energy, my life to helping others build a relationship, a stronger relationship with themselves, and I'm providing whatever tools I can to help others climb out and rediscover that light within themselves and heal. And it feels like my purpose,
I was going to ask you, what does that feel like to have gone through, we'll say, the fire, and then to go back and help others get through?
It feels like a duty, honestly, because I think a lot of us are in the fire. Whether we consciously realize it or not, we are in the fire. And that fire may be burning deep within us, or we may be engulfed in flames and suffering. The suffering may be silent, or it may be externalized. And we need help. We need one another. I think from my own journey of healing, that help, the tools, the support I needed felt distant. It felt expensive. It felt too pure for someone who is as broken and wrong as me, and I want to disassemble that entire story and generate new ways of supporting one another. And when you have made it through the fire and you've healed through addiction, through, the process of understanding the trauma and truly healing those wounds deep within, again, it feels like a duty to help one another. We don't get through it and then say, yay, I did it. Now I can relax and go enjoy my life by myself and just, forget that the rest of the world is hurting. If we've truly healed, I think we tap into that divine abundance of consciousness and love, and we realize this is to be shared. There's no more lack in my life. There's no more holding on to these crumbs of confidence. This is profound. This is huge. This is freedom. And we all deserve freedom. We all deserve to be ushered out of the fire and our wounds to be cleaned up and cared for with the support from one another. And Yeah, it feels like a duty. It feels like a mission to help as many people as I can while I'm here.
Mm, that was so beautiful. Thank you so much for that, and especially the way you
Yeah.
share it. Like you can hear the healing in your voice. There's just this calm and peace that you have, and it's very inviting. And I think that if you're using your experience to help others, especially with such a profound sense of duty, people will be drawn to that. They really will.
Yeah, I think authenticity, truth speaks, it's undeniable,
Mm,
and I don't pretend to have the truth, I don't pretend to say this is the truth. However, I know for certain that the tools that I discovered in my own journey of healing work, and I've
mm,
witnessed them work for others, and they're very basic tools that every single one of us has access to. It's
mm,
not a special expensive toolkit that only the strong and, less traumatized can access. Even the deepest traumas, the deepest wounds, the deepest addictions, we all have access to consciousness and love inside of ourselves. We all have access to that. It may be a journey to find it, to access it. It may not be easy, but every single one of us has access to
mm,
that light within us. And in that sense, it's very simple. It's very basic, and there's nothing I'm giving anyone or helping them. And there's nothing I'm providing for them other than a map. I just
mm,
give them a map, and this map worked for me. And yet this terrain is within your own heart. It's within your own psyche. And it is your sacred journey to travel and traverse and ascend and do the work. It's within your own hands, but here's a map. And I may be there to hold up a candle when it gets really dark,
mm,
These tools can be helpful when it's really dark. But yeah, I think that's the mystery and the beauty and the simplicity, is that it's inside of each of us, that divine light, which ultimately is what we need when we're in the dark.
mm. I'm so excited to keep having this conversation with
Yes,
you.
already, this is sacred. This is beautiful.
When you reflect on the path that brought you here, all the layers, the initiations, the ache that shaped your calling, what is it that rises to the surface for you first?
Mm. The essence of expansion. I
Mm,
think it's expansion. I think when I say expansion, but there's also this reclaiming, rediscovery, so it's an expansion, but almost returning to this place of expansion that we were attuned to when we were born, rediscovering the consciousness within us. Because from everything I've researched and studied and practiced and understand everything, we are not born unintelligent or unwise or unconscious, and then some of us will, reach this spiritual ascension and reach consciousness. I believe that consciousness is innate to our beings. We're born with curiosity and love and tenderness and sensitivity and presence. That's how we're born, these wide-eyed, sacred, precious, beautiful beings who are conscious and who are loving. And then trauma happens. And I think through the process of trauma, and it's not a singular experience for many of us. We may go through a traumatic childhood or a traumatic marriage or a traumatic, personal health issue that lasts decades. And I think we learn to be afraid, and we constrict, and we curl up, and we go inward, and we get smaller and smaller. And then we're encased in shame, and we hide, and we get smaller and smaller, and then we burrow away, and that light burrows away inside of us. And the journey of healing is an expansion. It's an unfurling and an opening. but that opening is not new. It's deeply familiar. It's a reclaiming of the freedom and the presence and the peace and the love and the tenderness that we all know, but we may have forgotten, but that we embodied when we were very, very young. And if we were abused in the womb, which I experienced abuse in the womb, if we've experienced abuse very early on, we know fear very well, and we may have learned to contract and constrict and protect from a very young age. However, again, that is part of who we are. Consciousness and love and presence is who we are. It's the spirit of who we are. So it's an expansion, an opening, a confrontation with pain and fear, and opening up so that that sacred light can shine outward once again. You know.
I always wonder what life would have been like for some minus the perils. And I had this paperweight that said, what would you attempt if you knew you couldn't fail? And just the thought of that takes you to a different place.
Yeah,
because it removes the fear, it removes the doubt, it removes past experiences that told you you couldn't do, you couldn't be. And the reclamation of returning to yourself, to a wholeness, is similar in that you're not burdened by what you can't do, or the shame of your mistakes, or what people have told you you shouldn't try to accomplish, or that you're this or you're that, or you have to stay small. And so to hear you speak like this, I mean, so early on in the conversation too, like we went straight to sheer depth immediately. And it just, I can just tell that you hold a sacred space because of where you've been and the darkness that you've turned the light on in. And like I said, I was so excited when I saw you and learned about you, and when you agreed to do this with me, because I knew it would be an amazing conversation. And we literally just started. And I already feel like we could wrap this up now just based off of the warmth that's already been shared. But of course, I do want to go deeper. And of course, I want to ask you about your journey. And if you could take us back to the beginning of your journey before the healing work, what was life like for you when the struggle with your food, your body, food, and pain first began?
You know, the word that, thank you so much. That was so beautiful, what you just shared. And just to speak to that, I feel that when we allow ourselves to open up, you know, to confront the fear that may constrict us, the fear that you may feel when you had the idea to do a podcast, and to step forward, when you unfurled out of that story of, you know, that many of us deal with, maybe I'm not good enough, or I'm an imposter, or I don't have what it takes, whatever it is, you know, that paperweight saying, what if you knew you wouldn't fail? What would you pursue in life? Where would your purpose and your destiny bring you without fear? To me, fear is like a cloud, and love is the sun. Love is so much stronger. Love is bigger than this planet. It's many, 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 many times bigger than this planet. And fear is a cloud. It's like this mist that's just preventing the cloud, the sun from beaming through, love from beaming through. And yet if you attune yourself to love long enough, it will evaporate the fear. And to speak to this space, it feels like light. It feels like love. It feels like warmth. It feels that we've both done the work enough on ourselves to show up and be honest and open in this moment. And that's when magic happens. That's when the divine speaks. That's when we're illuminated with this warm light, because we're both willing to move beyond our fears and open up in this moment, you know, to let that divine truth of you converse with the divine truth in me, and vice versa. This is light illuminating, and that's love. Love has a space to reignite when we let our fears unfurl and we're not afraid. Like, I'm not afraid here with you right now. I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid of what you think about me or what the listeners may think about me, or if I sound professional or if my voice sounds good enough. I'm here to have this heartfelt conversation with you. I'm just here to be here with you. And that to me that's the beauty of what healing will transpire into, is presence and confidence and the ability to just be yourself, to be honest, and to be here right now and to not hide away. So that was a long response to just speak to what you were saying. But going back to when my journey began with bulimia, with eating disorders, it's interesting because when I think about bulimia, I don't have this shattering feeling of wrongdoing or, okay, that's when the bad began, or when my addiction, my, all-encompassing, horrible, disgusting addiction started. I actually have so much reverence for bulimia as being one of my greatest teachers. And it was profoundly painful. And I lived in a state of suffering and hiding and secrecy and shame for so many years. But to go back to the beginning of where that learning and journey began with addiction, I come to this place of longing, of hunger, of need. I was so hungry. I was so sad and so scared and so hungry. And I had discovered food as a way to comfort and experience connection and have a glimmer of relaxation and peace temporarily when I would eat, and I would calm down and I would feel whole. But it was a deeper hunger. I was longing for a more constructive, nourishing, sustainable connection and comfort and love and release. Those are the 4 needs that I work with in the Empowered Heart work: is connection, release, comfort, and love. And bulimia was getting all of my needs met, because then I would release the food and I felt this release, this relief. For me, bulimia was such a teacher. I have reverence. I have respect for bulimia. I have reverence and respect for anything that was profoundly challenging in life. It brings us to a place of realization and awareness. And in the moment, we may think that what we're experiencing is dividing us apart and breaking us. But the wound is so much deeper. It's an external response to something so much deeper where we may feel broken. And for me, I was so hungry. I was longing and so hungry, and I needed connection. I needed release. I needed comfort. I needed love. And food was a way for me to experience that. But it wasn't really getting my needs met. It wasn't really taking care of that need, the unmet need, the longing. So I would temporarily satisfy the longing. I would eat something. I would feel temporarily at peace. And then the hunger was still there for years, for decades. I just felt this hunger inside of me. And for many of us, that hunger leads to other forms of addiction. That hunger of feeling that we're not whole, that we're not good enough, we're not at peace within. I think that's the root of so many addictions. That hunger and longing.
What did life look like for you while you were battling bulimia? Like, what did people see on the outside as opposed to what was really going on internally?
It's so hard to say. I think when I was struggling for so long, and I had this distorted perception of self that was built from a root system of pain and longing. The perception I had of myself was broken and dirty and weak, embarrassing, ashamed. Yet I think others perceive me as having a lot of energy, as being maybe a little anxious, busy, very busy, a little mysterious, because I knew how to leave. I knew how to hide. I was very good at secrecy. So I could maneuver and not get too close, not let anyone in too close. And so I think that in a way, I think that was probably very confusing for people, and also in relationships very confusing, because I kept myself well protected. I kept my secrets well protected. You know, for me, dealing with bulimia, it was so embarrassing, and I didn't feel that I had control. So here I had this embarrassing conflict and habit, addiction, that I was hiding, complete secrecy. It wasn't like, you know, going to the bar, it was going to the bathroom, but I had to lie so many times. So I think it probably seeded a feeling of longing in others, because they wanted more connection and to be closer to me, but I was out of reach, you know.
Would you say that you were still completely functional? Like, if someone were to look at you, would they have been able to tell that you were suffering? Or you said you were really good with hiding your secrets. So, like someone could be a functional alcoholic and no one really knows.
Yeah.
Would you say that you were, I guess, a functional bulimic?
Yeah, of course. Very functional, highly functional, emotionally dysfunctional, but I was able to keep a job. I was able to be in a relationship. I was able to do almost anything and everything, until it started to wear on my body. The body is a resource. It has energy. It has a capacity. And when we take from it and wear and tear year after year, unconsciously, destructively, there is a capacity. And my body did reach a capacity in my late 20s. And I ended up in the ER. I was essentially, I had a hiatal hernia. I wasn't able to digest food anymore. I had destroyed my teeth. I'd really done a number on my physical body. And it was reaching a breaking point. It was reaching a turning point. In a sense, my body was saying, I'm not going to do this anymore. I refuse. So there was this necessary, almost a dividing consciousness. You know, there was the unconscious part of me, and then this part of me that was saying, I can't do this anymore. We've got to make a choice here. Either we're going to work towards living, or we're just going to continue working towards dying. And when my body started to shut down, when any of our bodies start to shut down, you don't have a lot of leniency or wiggle room to keep doing what you're doing, because without the body, the spirit, it would be very challenging for the spirit to be here without the physical embodiment. You know, very challenging. I don't know how it works. I don't know how the spiritual realm works entirely. But I need this body. This body is a gift. She is sacred. I need her. I 100% need her to be here. And I was making a choice to not. I was discarding and disrespecting this beautiful sacred body, because of that hunger, because of that unresolved trauma and pain inside of me. It was just, I was taking it out on my body, and my goodness, you know. It's like slashing your own, it's like you have this vehicle and you're slashing your own tires and you're just kicking it and smashing in the window. It's like, that's your car. You're doing that to your own car. Like, you've, how are you going to drive it? You're literally totaling your own car. You can't get anywhere. You get one.
Mm.
We have to, at some point, recognize that we are the one holding the mallet. We're the one holding the weaponry that's destroying the vehicle, the body. We're making choices every day, every moment. And we're either coming from a place of consciousness and presence and love, mindfulness, or we're taking action to destroy this one sacred gift that we're given. And that's power. It doesn't seem like it in the moment. It may feel humbling, which is also necessary. But that's power, to recognize I'm the one holding the power here. I'm the one holding the decision. I am the one making this choice again and again. And I don't have to do this. No one's forcing me. I may feel that I don't have control. I may feel in those moments of spiraling and suffering that it's happening to me and there's nothing I can do to heal. But I'm the one doing this to myself. And I don't have to. I don't have
I
to
love
hurt
the
myself.
analogy you gave of the car. And the first thing I thought was, well, someone may say, well, I can always get another car. And that may be a way for them to not be present with, okay, but you only get one body.
Yeah. Yeah, the body has this wisdom and intelligence, and this car, like, we just get one. You know, yeah. The body knows.
I remember reading Gabor Mate's book, When the Body Says No. I believe that's the title of it. I can't remember off the top of my head, but he was saying that at a certain point, if you do not know how to say no, your body will say it for you. And I just remember thinking, wow, even the body knows when enough is enough, even if we don't know how. And it will prevent you from doing harm to your own detriment. I mean, unless if you're engaging in a behavior that is constantly taking a toll on the body, yes, the body will shut down at a certain point. And that's just because of the wisdom that's in the body. And it has the agency to know when it's reached capacity. You know, it's just like an engine in a car. If you don't have oil, if you don't have water and it overheats, the engine's going to seize and the car stops. And not that a car is as wise as a body is, but I mean, you can only push things so far before they shut down.
Yeah.
And I feel like our body knows what we need and it gives us signals. If you get hungry, you get hunger pains. Like, our body is constantly talking to us. We just have to listen.
Yes. Exactly. Yeah, the wisdom that we have access to is profound. It's profound. And I feel that, for a lot of us who, maybe an example that can articulate this. So if someone here is not actively dealing with addiction and can't relate to that relationship between the treatment of the body, unresolved trauma, etc., the importance of reverence and appreciation and taking care, giving care to the body, upkeep and treating it with kindness and care. For a lot of us, we may stay busy and work really hard and push every day, push with our work, push with the way we operate in life, and we're just going. And at some point, we may get sick. We may start dealing with issues with the physical body, with illness. And I often witness illness being the direct result of someone who doesn't know how to stop and rest. Because when we are sick, I mean, just imagine yourself when you have a cold or a flu or you're not well. You often might visualize yourself laying down in bed and resting. And the body needs that. And especially if we have learned to push to, once again, bringing it back to the car analogy, the vehicle, you ran out of gas. At some point, it's going to stop. It can't keep going. And it being this beautiful, sacred landscape of resource, of energy and emotion and feeling and life force, at some point, it's going to run out of gas if we don't stop ourselves consciously and recognize I need to refuel. I need to take care of myself. I need to get my body's needs met. And I think it's important to mention, I don't feel that it's anyone's fault. It's no one's fault. You're not doing something wrong by pushing hard or if you haven't learned the art of caring for your body, it's not wrongdoing. It's often that we don't know how. We weren't taught, we weren't led by example. We don't know how to love our bodies. Which the body is a big part of our experience here. It's a big part of self. So we don't know how to love ourselves. We don't know how to be present and how to listen and prioritize the care needed for the self and for the body. So we just keep going and we unconsciously focus and distract on all the many to-dos and the story of our lives. And we forget this is it. I have this relationship and I cannot take it for granted. I cannot take it for granted because if I do, I'm not going to have it for very long. I don't get to be here for very long. And I think of you right now in this moment, Jalan. You need this body and this warm voice and this thinking brain and this ability to be here in order to fulfill your work in the world of spreading consciousness and helping uplift people into a place of having deeper conversation and a willingness to do the work, encouragement and support and all that you're bringing to the world. You're here because you're able to be, because you're housed in this body. And there's a certain necessity of being healthy. In order to fulfill your purpose, you have to be able to be here. And that, for any of us who have dealt with a destructive addiction, I think most addictions are destructive to the physical body, to the mental body, every essence of the self. It's very destructive to feel encased in a compulsive action or belief system. But again, we have to tap into that empowerment. I am making the choice. This is my body. I'm making the choice. How do I want to live? How do I want to see my future? Do I want to be here? Maybe sometimes I question if I want to be here. But guess what? You need to be here because you have important work to do. And when you transmute that suffering into your purpose, you're going to bring so much healing to the world. And you're going to need to be here fully embodied to do that. And I don't know that I consciously knew that when I started to reroute and get onto the path of healing, but I knew that I was going in the direction that was taking me towards death, towards not being here. My body was shutting down. And somewhere inside I knew I gotta shift gears, I gotta stop. I gotta do something different.
There's a part in your book where you write about hurting so quietly for so long. And for those who want different and want to heal but may not know where to begin, or it's so dark, what does it do to the soul to ache in silence for so long?
Mm. Oh, just feeling that, just letting myself feel that question and lean into what it feels like to hide in the silence. What comes to mind is shame, this unworthiness to be here, and to suffer in silence feels like a hiding. It feels like a withdrawing from the world, from presence, and just hiding deep within because I'm not worthy enough, I'm not strong enough, I'm not beautiful enough, I'm not worthy of being here. So I'm just going to figure out a way to survive a shell. I'll go through the motions and the routines and I look like a normal human. But inside I feel so broken and so wrong and so ashamed. Therefore, I need to hide in silence. And silence is dangerous. Silence can be dangerous because I see the parts of ourselves that we may perceive as being broken and wrong and unworthy. When we hide inside of ourselves and we suffer alone, we're hiding away from the light of consciousness and presence and truth and honesty and connection and all of the rewards of being here. And it kind of festers. The healing doesn't happen. The pain festers inside of us. And it doesn't go away. It's not like if I close this up and tuck it away for long enough, somehow it'll just disappear. It just burrows deep within us and that pain just stays there. And for a lot of us, we just manage to survive. We just live with pain. We just have adapted to the being uncomfortable, that it's become somewhat normalized to live in discomfort, to hide away in silence. But it's dangerous because once again, we need to open. We need to let it out. We need to find a safe space to release that. I'm a huge fan of talk therapy, of connection, of creating a safe container and environment where you don't have to carry that alone, where you get to let that out. Let's get it out of there. Come on. What's going on? What happened? You don't need to carry that alone. Let's clean that out. It's like cleaning your house, cleaning a closet. Maybe if I just shut the door long enough, it's just everything's just going to organize itself. And one day I'll just magically open it and it'll be clean. Nope. It's just going to stay there and get dusty. And so finding a safe space to release, to clean, to cleanse, and to relieve ourselves of that burden. We're carrying this burden, this story. To let it go. You don't need to carry that alone. It's not yours to carry.
I think early on we get so many messages of or from others who've been carrying burdens that weren't theirs to carry. And so it just becomes something that's passed down. Well, it wasn't mine, but it was given to me, so I'm supposed to give it to you. And it happens unconsciously. And I think that can live in families. It can live generationally for so long, these burdens that we carry. And no one knows how to release them, maybe because of shame, maybe because silence is a place that everyone has been living. What were some of the messages that you got early on, and how did they affect how you transitioned into later life and then starting your healing?
Yeah. Do you mean messages as from my own family? The messages of pain and suffering that were passed to
Yeah.
me, the patterns, the messages, the beliefs.
Mm.
I really do feel that the root system is pain, and then it's encased in fear. So pain and fear, these two basic, profound elements of suffering, pain and fear. So if my parent was in pain and they were too afraid to look the pain in the eyes and process it and unravel it and release it, to do the work, chances are that pain was passed on to them unless my grandparent was able to get through, to penetrate the encasement of fear, to reach that pain. So we have the pain encased in fear. And if we go back enough generations where nobody felt strong enough, courageous enough to confront that fear and move into that pain to understand it and infuse it with consciousness and love, it's just going to keep getting passed on. And I think for a lot of us, maybe you can relate to this, maybe a lot of us can relate to, I'm not going to pass this on. I will not continue the story of suffering. I will not continue the pattern of pain. I'm not going to remain silent thinking that this is my burden to carry. I'm going to do the work. I'm going to open this up and unravel it and unfurl and go within and sort through the pieces of this trunk. I think of it being like this trunk that's passed on. It just collects more and more stuff. And then we're telling the next generation to, oh, this is how you do it. You just kind of wrap this strap around your shoulders and you drag it around for your entire life. And then, you'll go ahead and pass this huge, heavy trunk to your offspring, and then they can drag it around. It just gets heavier and heavier. I remember in the beginning of my healing, again, in my late 20s, when I had been many, many years of food addiction and bulimia, 16, 17 years at that point. I said, I got to open this trunk and figure out what the heck, what am I dragging around here? Whose stuff is this? This isn't even my stuff. Like does anyone want these shoes? Because why are they even in here? Like, what is happening here? Like, whose books are these? Someone put a huge heavy weight in here. I don't need to be dragging this around. I need to sort through this stuff. And in many ways, the work requires us to sort through that heavy familial trunk and discern, is this mine to carry? Is it useful? Do we need it? Or am I willing to let this go? I mean, it takes a lot of consciousness, a lot of presence, a lot of strength, a lot of patience, and it may take up many years to do that, to go through that trunk. But oh my goodness, that's freedom. That's the goal. That's the reason to do the work. That's a reason to process and sort through it and move beyond that encasement of fear and avoidance and go into the sorting process so that you don't have to suffer, to carry this anymore. And how freeing, how enlightening to not carry that burden of the familial pain, to recognize my mother may have suffered, my father may have suffered, my grandparents may have suffered, my great-grandparents may have suffered, but I don't have to. I'm not doing them a favor or upholding the family commitment to we must suffer, which I think for a lot of families, there is something like that, That's just what we do. We suffer. Doesn't mean I don't love you. Doesn't mean I don't cherish the beautiful traditions of our family and have respect for our lineage and love us. It means I love us enough to not suffer. I love me enough to not suffer. I'm choosing love. And my parents may not have known how to love themselves, or my grandparents, and it may go back a long way, not knowing how to love themselves, but I choose love. And if I truly love myself, I will not force myself to drag this around and suffer in silence and shame.
I think the trunk just gets heavier with every generation, right? And then somewhere along the line, someone said, don't open it. So it's just passed down. More and more stuff is put into it. Nobody looks to see what's in there, but it just gets heavier and heavier and heavier. And everyone's afraid to open it. But it becomes almost a badge of honor just to carry it without knowing what's there, because it's what we do. And then there's someone who says, well, this doesn't make sense. What is in here? And they open it and they start to sort, and everybody panics. And they say, what are you doing? We can't do that. But once you start to open it and you see what's in there, you say, none of this is mine. It makes no sense for me to carry this. And then, that's a great illustration of a cycle breaker. And once that trunk is then emptied, there's a new invitation. We don't have to carry the trunk at all. We can just be free and be light. But not everybody is going to accept that invitation because of all the messages that have been passed down. There's more fear in letting go of the messages than there is in letting go of the trunk.
Wow. Yeah, what you just said, I want to come back to something you just said because it was so profound. Think of the generations, the older generation saying, "Don't open it. Don't open it. Don't open it." So, in a way, and I'm curious your thoughts on this, Jalon, but in a way, we are choosing what we perceive as respect for our family because we respect our parents. We love them. We care about them. We don't want to make them uncomfortable. We don't want to cause discomfort. So it's a very beautiful and honorable decision to say yes to the request to not do the work, to not open because we don't want to make others uncomfortable. And we've been told, don't open it. Don't go there. We don't need to talk about it. Why do you always need to bring stuff up? No, don't do that. So we make that choice in that moment. It can be a very lonely decision. It can be very fierce to say, do I choose to make my family comfortable or do I choose to do the work? Have you discovered that?
At a certain point, you have to choose yourself, regardless of what it looks like, what others feel about it, the discomfort that it may give to others, the disruption that it may cause in a family. You just get to a point where you can no longer not choose you. And it may come in so many different ways. It may be as a result of destructive behavior. It may be as a result of so many things. But you're at a crossroad where now if I don't choose me, I've opened the trunk. I've seen what's in there. I know it's not mine to carry. And if I just close it back and put that strap back on my arm and continue to carry it, I'm consciously choosing to carry a burden that I know isn't mine. And some people will do that because it's easier to do what is familiar than to go a different path and to cause a lot of disruption and to make people uncomfortable and to possibly have to lose relationships or start anew.
Yeah. And yeah, 100%. And when you make that choice, I have to choose myself. It's not just you that you're choosing. You're choosing an infinite unknown. You're choosing the support of, we can't even do the math. We don't have access to that divine number of how many people will be influenced by that choice that you make. It's not just for yourself. It's for future generations. It's for all of the people who will be affected by your actions, by the benevolence, the ripple of love and benevolence and freedom and wisdom and magic that is free when you make that decision. I think a lot of times we feel selfish. To choose myself. Here I am. I'm making my family uncomfortable. I'm going against, what everyone else is doing. I don't want to feel ostracized. I don't want to experience loneliness. I already feel lonely. I need that connection with my family. I just can't. I can't put everyone through that for me to do the work and free myself and a family of suffering. And it's so much bigger than you. It's so much bigger. We have to remember that when you choose consciousness, when you choose to do the work, when you choose the path of healing and doing the work, and it may not be easy, and pulling everything out and talking and crying and transforming that silence into presence, into love, into life force energy, reclaiming your relationship with your voice, with your purpose, with everything that feels silenced when we're suffering, when you're reclaiming your life force energy that's often held hostage inside of that trunk. It's held hostage inside of that story of suffering. So you are fiercely reclaiming, and who even knows how big that decision is, how many people will be affected. How many people, but how many, let's go beyond that. How many plants and animals and trees, consciousness is what's needed on the planet. For our entire planet. When you choose love and that life force energy, and you choose to no longer desensitize and live in protection and inside that egoic chamber of silence, but when you break open and you really do the work and your heart expands and you resensitize, inevitably you will reclaim your sensitivity, which will broaden into compassion, and it starts affecting the decisions you make all across the board. The earth is affected by humans resolving their trauma. The trees, you will walk through the world differently. You will care differently because you can feel, because you can listen, because your intuition is stronger, because you've reclaimed this relationship with yourself. You've made that choice. So going beyond humans, the entire planet is affected when you heal, when each individual heals. I think of myself, I think of myself 20 years ago when I was deep in addiction and suffering, and my world was so small. My perspective was so small. I felt so weak. I had such a limited capacity. And I was very focused in this narrow perspective of my survival because I was living in survival. Flash forward 20 years to now, I've written numerous books. I have helped hundreds, thousands of people. I have an animal refuge at my house where I have animals that I'm helping who are suffering. So I've got donkeys and horses, and I'm helping animals now because I have so much love. I'm tapped into source. There's no limit. I'm not living in that scarcity mentality of survival. So now my healing is helping animals, and now it's helping the earth. It's helping. It's just expanding. So when you make that courageous decision to heal, even if it upsets your family, even if it is going to make others uncomfortable, even if others don't want to talk and you're like, I have to go to a therapist. I can't hold this in. Keep in mind that the healing will keep expanding, and we have no idea how much good it will bring to the world. It's infinite.
That was so beautiful. It is really remarkable, what can happen, the ripple effects of just a decision to empty the trunk or put the trunk down, or to say, I'm no longer participating in anything that no longer suits you or doesn't serve you or isn't healthy. But people will choose to continue to bypass what they know is for them, to keep the peace. And there was a moment that you described where the spiritual path became just another way to bypass your pain, to be good instead of whole. And so I wanted to ask you, what does spiritual bypassing look for you, and what helped you to break that pattern as well?
Yeah. Thank you. It's a really important question. I think for many of us, we are seeking wholeness. We're seeking freedom. We're seeking happiness. We're seeking peace. And if we have lived a life, have a very in-depth relationship with the opposite of that, with suffering and struggle and that disharmony within, it is valid that we would want that. It's the truth that we need that. It is absolutely 100% right that we should want happiness and peace and that feeling, that sensation of freedom. And it's not just a sensation. It's not a holy ground that you can just jump over to and say, well, if I think positive thoughts, if I I still kind of blame myself for what I did all those years ago. But if I'm good now and I just, keep the harmony and do good things and volunteer and make the world a better place, if I speak the right language and I can change. Here I am. Look, I'm changed. I'm on this sacred path. I don't even associate with what happened back then. I'm a different person now. I'm free. And a holistic change, a holistic healing requires, in my perception, in all the work that I've done and that I do, a holistic healing requires us to welcome every piece equally to the table. I say everyone is welcome to the table. Every one of your experiences, the childhood experience, the teen experiences, the things that you don't talk about because you really wish you hadn't done that, that everything is a part of this divine experience of purpose and presence and life and learning, and it's all sacred. So going back to those places, sorting through them, understanding your trauma is I speak to observe and feel as very key elements in the uncovering and the awareness of what we're hiding within our suffering, before taking action, like connection, release, comfort, and love. And it's a weaving with every thread of what we've experienced. We don't jump over it and pretend or avoid. Otherwise, we're avoiding. And that is a key element of fear, is avoidance. So we're not truly stepping into our power and to the potential of our healing if we're avoiding pieces of our past. And we'll talk about this, and this, or we're just focusing on the solution, but we're not doing the work of awareness to really understand what we've been through, to make eye contact with those traumatic experiences. Then we run the risk of unconsciously avoiding, of not even knowing that we're avoiding, of just focusing on the aesthetic of peace and the light. And it's not like it's a destination or something that it's not the way you dress, it's not the way you talk. It's the light that is emitted from the center of your being when you stop hiding. when the fear, the cloud cover of fear burns away, inevitably you are a bright, beautiful, beaming light. And that comes from freeing ourselves through doing the work, through sorting through the pieces, not bypassing any of it, but making peace with it, building a relationship with the pain, and making peace with the experiences from the past. To me, that is what paves the way to truly being at peace, is making peace with the past.
Something you just said, I thought listeners might be like, well, how do you do that? You said making a relationship with the pain. How on earth do you do that?
Oh, yeah. I'm so glad you said that, because that's one of my favorite things to talk about, is building a relationship with pain. Okay. So let's imagine that you've been through very painful experiences, and what you've learned to do, maybe you've learned to avoid it. You've learned to sever yourself from that story, and it seemingly works. Yet now you're finding yourself with some destructive patterning and short-tempered and mood swings, whatever, addiction. The avoidance displays itself in many ways. Pain is the underlying frequency. There's pain. Pain is the side effect of trauma. So there is pain inside of you. And you can distract, you can focus on something else, you can convince yourself that you're not in pain, you can, change jobs, change whatever it is, relating your pain to something in your current life. But the truth is, deep down, you're still hurting. Something happened, it's not resolved. That's unresolved trauma. There's pain inside of me. And building a relationship with pain means I'm ready to build a relationship with myself, with the hurting part of me, the part of me that's hiding and hurting inside. So I'm ready to sit down and build a relationship with myself who's hurting, rather than saying, no, it's not happening. It's so long ago. I don't want to think about it. I'm fine now. You're actually building a relationship and stretching your capacity to be present with the discomfort, with the part of you that's uncomfortable. And one way that I put this into context, so it's a little easier to understand, is let's say you're working out, you're getting physically fit, and you're out of shape, and you don't want to do the work. You don't want to start exercising. You don't want, it's just so uncomfortable, and I get exhausted, and it hurts. It hurts. I don't want to do that. I would rather live my sedentary life and just not have to move my body. Yet I am dealing with some health issues. Major health issues are starting to happen, and I'm feeling kind of depressed, but I don't want to do the work. Well, what you're avoiding is pain. On the other side of that is a healthy body. It's a healthy vascular system and healthy muscles and stronger bones and clearer vision and great digestion and all these effects of really taking care of your body. But you're avoiding doing the work because you don't want to experience pain. Well, in order to heal, in order to get healthy, you have to build a relationship, your own personal relationship with being uncomfortable, with pain, with discomfort. The part of you, let's say again in that analogy, the part of you that's sweating and aching and holding this yoga posture and wanting to just drop it because it hurts, you're breathing now. Okay, a little bit longer. You've got this. Okay, 10 more seconds. Just hold this. What you're doing in those 10 seconds is you're building a relationship with pain and discomfort. And it's going to be really uncomfortable for the first 2 weeks or 4 weeks or 6 weeks or 2 months. When you're doing the deeper work, it might be months. It's uncomfortable. But you get better at it. You get stronger. You get stronger emotionally. Your capacity changes. You stretch, you strengthen. You're able to be present through those uncomfortable conversations. You may not have a strong capacity right now, but you practice and you get better at it. You build a relationship with discomfort and pain. And through the process, you get closer to yourself, to your power. You believe in yourself. You build confidence that you can. I think for a lot of us, I don't want to sit down and talk to a therapist. No way, I couldn't handle that. I'm not strong enough. I don't want to be uncomfortable. No way, I'm not going to do it. But you want to heal. You want to get healthy. You're going to have to get uncomfortable. And it's going to be harder in the beginning. But it's going to get easier because you're going to get stronger.
You've even described emotional pain as a love language. Can you, I guess, break that down a bit and unpack how pain can be a love language?
I mean, we wouldn't feel pain if we weren't having this experience of life. And when it comes to emotional pain, you wouldn't feel heartbroken and pain and grief if it didn't stem from some form of love and connection beneath that. When you've lost a loved one, you feel so much grief and pain because you love them. It's love. Love is the root system. It's that connection. So when we are avoiding pain and we're avoiding being uncomfortable, we may not realize we're avoiding the depth of love. We're avoiding the part of ourselves that's so open and tender and vibrant and innocent and powerful. So pain, experiencing it, is bringing us back into our love. And I am not a masochist. I'm not saying to go and yay, pain is awesome. Go put yourself through pain. I'm saying build a relationship with discomfort. Strengthen your ability to be with it. Try to be patient with yourself. It will take time, like building muscles. You're strengthening your capacity. And by doing so, you're allowing yourself to come closer to yourself, to the part of you that's hurting, and you're befriending yourself and you're reuniting with yourself. And as you do that, you're reuniting with your heart, with your power, with your potential, with your love. If I'm afraid to experience pain and fear, if I'm afraid to experience that and I don't allow myself to fully open to love, then I won't be able to be fully present and experience the depth of beauty that life has to offer, because I will be living in avoidance because I'm afraid of pain. So therefore I'm constricting my love. I'm not allowing myself to fully love because I'm afraid of pain. And many of us do that in our relationships. Someone can be married for 20 years and they never really let themselves open up to that infinite love, to really surrender to the depths of love and truly experience love, because they're afraid, well, at some point, they're going to pass away or leave me or meet someone else. I'm just going to keep myself one foot in, one foot out. And by doing that, we're doing that because we're afraid of getting hurt. So again, it's when we experience pain, we are doing this in honor of experiencing more love. It's directly connected. And it is worth it. We don't want to be living life one foot in, one foot out. No way. It's so beautiful. It's so vibrant and worthy. You are worthy. I am worthy. Life is worthy to be fully here and do that work of building our relationship, our ability, our resilience, our capacity to be with the discomfort when it happens.
Something that can be a result of pain is grief.
Yeah.
How do we build a relationship with grief and honor losses?
Man, grief is, to me, that is the big pain. Grief is a word that describes the deep, deep, deep ache of pain. When we're grieving, we are engulfed in sometimes agonizing pain. And we don't feel strong enough. Like, I don't know if I can live through this. I'm in so much pain. And I think a lot of us are grieving silently. When we think of the avoidance and unresolved trauma, we're grieving deep in our hearts. I was grieving, and that grieving led to this need, that led to this hunger, that led to addiction. We're grieving. Something to remember about grief is that it is an opening. It's an invitation. I think of it as a portal. When you allow yourself to open up, again, connecting love and pain, when we open up and allow ourselves to express and to move through that veil of fear and to touch the pain and to not shun ourselves or convince ourselves that life is better if we just keep that hidden and locked away, or distracted, but to say, I am hurting, my pain is valid, and I give myself permission to release this, to express this, to cry, to wail, to write, to speak, to write a heartbreaking song, to move my body, to scream, to whatever it is, to let that agonizing pain move through us rather than, silently being hidden and concealed within. When we let ourselves open, we're opening that portal to divine love. Because once again, we wouldn't feel grief if we didn't feel pain. I wouldn't feel grief of the loss of that loved one if I didn't love them so much. So when you're allowing yourself to grieve, you're paving the way for the love to reemerge. You're allowing yourself to move that energy, to let that pain be valid. Give yourself permission to grieve. And then often there is a peace when you really let yourself cry. It doesn't mean that it's going to bring the person back. It doesn't mean that it's going to solve what feels so unjust and so painful. But it means you don't have to carry it. Imagine how many tears are in that trunk.
Oh my God.
Imagine how it's sloshing around with tears, of unwept tears, of all the tears that our foremothers and forefathers wouldn't allow themselves to cry. So oftentimes when you're opening that trunk, you're grieving. You're crying the tears that the elders we're told not to cry. Depending on where your lineage is from and what was going on. If it was a war, or we can't cry. We've got to stay strong. We've got to work. We've got to survive. No crying. So a lot of times grief just needs to cry. It just needs a safe space to release, to just drain out of us so that we can feel love again, so we can come back in contact with our hearts. And it's a worthy cause. And there are many grief counselors, and it's something I definitely want to remind people is that if you're listening to this conversation and you're thinking, okay, but I cannot do this alone. This is too much. Like, I need help. I need assistance. I need support. One, that realization is so important to recognize I'm ready for support, and then to take action. There's incredible grief work happening in the world. Incredible practitioners and methods and modalities, and I'm so appreciative that grief is rising to the surface, as a term that's becoming more widely used and accepted and revered, the grief process. So it may be time to start looking for resources, for looking for support and assistance in your readiness to drain out that trunk of tears.
It seems like the trunk is going to be a common thread in this conversation, and
Yeah.
we keep building on it. And when you just talk about uncried tears and the uncried tears that are sloshing around in the trunk as it's being carried, I just thought, man, that's why there's such an urgency to keep it closed, because no one wants to deal with the grief that will come roaring out of it. If there were 2 wars that great grandma had to go through, and then
Yeah.
slavery, and then genocide, all of the emotions associated with that couldn't be felt have been jammed into that trunk on top of everything else. So that's why we can't open it. And so when someone goes to say, okay, well, what's in here? Because we have no idea what has been jammed in there, because it hasn't been talked about, it hasn't been felt. And I'm just, a 13-year-old who wants to be emotionally sovereign. And now I'm like, why can't I do X, Y, and Z? And there's no explanation. It's just, don't open it, just carry it. And so that's why it doesn't work for those who are now in a position to feel their feelings and who want to be healthy. And then that also can cause a divide in families, because you won't just be quiet and do what you're told. Like, we have secrets, we have so many things we're carrying that we can't talk about, and that we can't discuss, and that we can't feel. So just get in line and do what you're told, because this is your lineage.
Oh, so well said. Oh, it makes me want to cry, because
But
I
it doesn't
think of,
have to be.
yeah, thinking of how, as you're speaking, I'm visualizing mother and father and grandfather and grandmother and great, and they're all sitting there just biting their lips and rocking back and forth in these rocking chairs. And they're like, we don't want you to talk. We don't want you to do the work, because it means we'll come back in contact. When you start talking about it and crying, it means we're going to have to come back in contact with our grief, because we carry that in us. It's not like the trunk gets fully passed on. You're right that it gets heavier, but everyone's still carrying it. Like, it's just like it's multiple. It's just this heavier trunk. It's just, and they're saying, oh, it's going to force me to open mine. And I don't know if I'm strong enough. I'm hurting so much, and I don't know how to feel safe. I was told not to cry. I was trained. So there is an element of rebellion, fierce rebellion. You say sovereignty, fierce rebellion in reclaiming our relationship with our own tears, with our own hearts, with our voices, with our ability, with that decision to say, I will not suffer any longer. I will not continue suffering the way we have suffered. And I do this with love. And I am strong enough to cry. I'm strong enough to ache and let this drain, because I can't carry this, and I do not want to see this passed on to any more people. Because that's, when we think about the the layers, these different masks and layers that we wear. I describe it as defense, which comes after protection. We go into this state of avoidance when we've been through trauma and pain. So we've learned how to defend, how to fight, how to get angry. And I think for a lot of us, we're avoiding doing the work because our loved ones might get angry, because that's how they process their grief, is they cover it up with this tiger's mask. And they say maybe that all forms of abuse, every form, emotional, mental, sexual, physical abuse, all stems back to pain, to unresolved trauma, to unwept tears, to someone learning how to fight and to go into this anger response, into this desensitized, unconscious realm, rather than the tenderness and the bigger, deeper work of feeling. Because likely they went through trauma, they felt unsafe, so that helps them to feel stronger, to keep that shell, that armor, that cage intact. And so they're avoiding the tenderness, because that's the real work, is to be with. That's the real power, the real courage, is to just feel.
Mm.
And it may look weak. You look at someone fighting and fists swinging in anger and rage, compared to someone who's gently, with their kneeled down, with their eyes closed and tears running down their face, with their hand gently placed upon their heart, and just feeling the pain. And we're taught in our society and the world that the first, this anger is power, that's strength, that's courage, when in reality, kneeling down and just letting yourself feel, surrendering to the truth of the pain and the love and the beauty and all of it, that's power, that's confidence, that's big work.
And I think for the most part, at the core of the avoidance, um, it's love. Because if I have a terrible experience that I've gone through and I put in the trunk, I want to protect you from that. So if I don't have the emotional capacity to sit down with you and tell you, okay, this is what happened and this is how I got through it, and we're going to ensure that it doesn't happen to you, I'm just going to avoid it. And in avoiding it, I think I'm protecting you, but I also don't allow you to do things that could just be a part of you experiencing life. And that also gets put in the trunk. And there's so many things that just get shoved in that trunk that, like I said, at its core, it's love. Like, we don't want you to hurt, but also by avoiding doing the work to process the pain, you're just passing down hurt. Like, your inheritance is going to be pain. Your legacy is going to be trauma until someone does the work to stop it.
Oh, yeah, there is kind regard and not wanting to, I've worked with a lot of people through my counsel practice who found out in their adult years what happened in their childhood, and they had to do some digging. They had to talk to other friends of family members, because they could not find access through their parents. That no one was willing to talk about it. And you're right, there was a desire to protect, to say, I don't want you to have to even think about this or even know about it. You forgot about it, so did I. Let's forget about it. Which, personally speaking, that was my mom's approach. We're not going to talk about it. We're going to pretend it didn't happen.
Mm.
We're going to start a new life. We're going to bypass, and we're just going to have this beautiful new life. And we're just never, ever going to talk about what happened. And my body remembered, my mind remembered. As a child, it was two worlds, and part of me was living in the world of pain, and part of me was being told to just be here and be happy. And the internal division. I needed to go and recover that part of myself who was just frozen in silence and just confused and hidden, still trying to make sense of abuse. And I think, if my mother has dementia now. She wouldn't have the cognitive ability to reflect on that. But man, if you met my mother, you would know that she is the most loving, caring, devoted mother. She would never, ever, ever want me to experience pain. So there was love in that. There was a desire to protect, you know. I'm going to avoid in order to protect you from the pain that we don't have to think about. But we do, because it's real. It's still in there. By forgetting about it and distracting ourselves, it doesn't go away. It's still there, you know. And
It's
it's so
like on your
precious.
car on the dashboard. If you get a check engine light and you just ignore it, it doesn't go away.
Wow. 100% at some point. Back to the body. You and we're like writing a book right now. We have all these analogies that are weaving, and it is all so connected. Back to the body being a big part of, the body keeps the score. The body remembers. The body remembers. And
That's for sure.
I think it's also, I think one thing I want to mention is doing the work. If we're to say doing the work, or signing up for therapy, or sorting through the trunk, or however, we describe it, I think a lot of us are intimidated by it, just like going to boot camp. Oh man, it's going to hurt. I don't want to have to go through that. It's like going to boot camp, But it doesn't necessarily have to be that way. It can also be starting a yoga practice that is gentle, and you start in the beginners. And then when you're ready, you're going to move into the intermediate. And you may not be at advanced. Healing doesn't have to be boot camp. Doing the work to resolve trauma doesn't have to be so such contrast and so re-traumatizing, so intense. There are many ways to heal. And I think just getting started, just taking a gentle step forward and moving your body. If we're bringing this back to the body and to building relationship with pain, that maybe even just rather than getting up at 5 a.m. and hustling and working for 2 hours and just agonizing pain, maybe it's just allowing yourself to sit for 15 minutes. Maybe it's just allowing yourself to write in your journal and just reflect on things by yourself. If you're not ready to talk to someone else, maybe it's just a gentle step forward, of just gently turning your gaze a little bit towards the past, just a little movement. Maybe you're not ready, but to just consciously recognize, I'm ready for change. I'm ready for something. Maybe I don't feel ready to dive in, but I'm ready. Some part of me is ready, just to unite and to honor that little faint whisper of readiness within you, to just do these gentle breathwork movements rather than the boot camp, to just work towards your readiness. I think it's important to mention that, because healing is also, the journey is also profoundly enjoyable and beautiful, and we're unfurling out of these layers of pain and protection so that more of that beautiful sacred light can be emitted. And it's a beautiful sacred experience to heal, to resolve the trauma, to do the work, and to revisit those experiences from our childhood, and to weep the tears and to feel the feelings. And so just a reminder that it doesn't have to be so intense. It can be a gentle, gradual process of healing. Each of us move at our own pace. Each of us have a different level of readiness. Each of us have been through a different level of intensity. Each of us are carrying a different level of pain. Each of us were raised differently. It's different for each of us. It's not linear. There's no solid program to healing. It moves at a gradual pace, and it's okay to heal gradually.
That was absolutely beautiful. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Well, one of the benefits of your healing is that now you're able to provide elder care. What has that been like for you to be able to help those in need um, closer to the end of their journey?
Oh, just so sacred, so
Mhm.
important, so humbling. Specifically, I was the elder caregiver for one person, and that was my mother. And it was about 10 years of caring for her. She lived with us. Um, she's still alive. She lives in a home right now. And I worked so hard for her to never have to move into a home. Like I was going to be there the whole way. But after 8 years of being her caregiver, and for much of that time, 24 hours a day, alongside my sister, both of our husbands, we all worked together to take care of her. Um, there came that moment for me of recognizing I'm burning out and now I'm suffering.
Mm.
And this work, this beautiful sacred wisdom and knowledge and the empowered heart work that I do now, it deserves my attention. And there are many people I want to care for and help. And it's okay for me to also take a step back and recognize I've done, I have my master's in elder caregiving. I did 8 years. Like I've invested so much of my life. It's okay for me to find a beautiful container for her, which I've done. She has a beautiful space she's living in now with amazing caregivers. Um, but I would say that experience for me for all of those years was so profoundly humbling. And honestly, I feel that our regard towards the elders has a lot to do with our mm, apprehension to approach the topic of death and aging and um, the necessary transcendence and transformation that each of us will go through. It's perhaps more comfortable to focus on the youth and life and the joy and especially in the United States, I don't know the exact percentage, but many of our elders are going directly into um, assisted living or into elder homes because we don't have the time or the energy to take care of them. So we are, you know, paying a lot of money, or Medicaid is taking over and taking care of our elders. And oh, it's such a important part of our life cycle to be in contact with the elders. Even if it's true you don't have the capacity or the finances or the time or the energy to care for the elder, and it really is the best for all of you for them to go into assisted living. I just encourage people to visit as often as you can to immerse yourself in being close with the elders. Again, for me, my mother has had dementia for a long time, so she hasn't known who I am for maybe 5 years, advanced dementia. So it's just an act of service to care for her and change her diapers and feed her and dress her. And she's in a wheelchair um, and yet it's love, it's
Mm.
pure love. I love is mysterious and it's divine, and it has a mysterious language of feeling and spirit. And I cared for her because I love her and I could feel her love coming back. And by doing that, by creating that space, by saying, okay, I've got to shift gears. I got to leave Southern California and move back home to Washington State and live with her because we didn't have the finances, and I didn't want to put her in a situation where she was scared and getting, state funded support that I felt was lacking the level of quality and love that I wanted her to be surrounded in. So I did it myself, again, with the support of my sister and her husband. But I would not change a single thing. I wouldn't take back one of those days or do it differently. It was so important. It was so humbling for me to witness my mother slowly dying, to be with her, to be with the grief, to just be with every essence of her mind dying and her slowly forgetting who I am. And just, it's so sacred. And it's challenging. I mean, it's immersing I immersed myself in a pure state of discomfort and grief. But it was love that led me there, because love is beneath the grief. And gratefully, I was able to just stay attuned to the love. And it was stronger than the fear. It was stronger. And she has received incredible care. And again, back to the mystery of life, slowing down, putting a huge pause on my music career, and being of service as an elder caregiver 24 hours a day opened up the spaciousness and slowed me down, that I was able to recognize, gosh, I'm just sitting here for hours and days and months, being with her, moving so slowly, opening myself up to be so sensitive that I can hear what she has to say when she can't speak. I wrote my book. I had that spaciousness to channel the entire 400 plus page book that I wouldn't have had the spaciousness to do if I had been busily pursuing my career in the city. So there are these quiet, sacred rewards to being of service, and to caring, and to choosing love, and to getting uncomfortable. You know, it's the divine speaks, and who would have known I needed that experience in order to write a book, and then another, and, hone in all of the work that I do. A lot of that happened during that time period.
Thank you for sharing such a beautiful part of your story and your journey. Um, it's quite clear that love was your motivating force, and I'm sure that somewhere in there your mom knows it and she felt it.
Yeah, for sure. I feel that.
Mm.
I yeah. And being a counselor and helping people through their pain and grief, like, my capacity, my patience, my ability to be with the uncomfortable is, again, I have a master's degree. I'm not a psychologist. I didn't go to study psychology, but I was an elder caregiver for 8 years. And I'm telling you, we underestimate the power of caregiving and how much we learn about
Mm.
presence and the psyche and patience and consciousness and compassion and everything required. For anybody who's listening right now and is a caregiver, I feel you. You're doing some of the biggest transformative work,
Mm.
and at some point you may need to recognize that you have to choose yourself, that you have to take care of yourself, and it's time to take a step back and find other support for the person you're caring for.
Mm. Yeah, that can be difficult, especially when it may be a parent or a loved one and you want to give them the best, and also realizing that you may not be in a position to do that anymore, and
Yeah,
having to let go, having to surrender to the process. So
that's right.
thank you so much
Yeah.
for sharing that.
Yeah.
With all that you're doing to help people, what is it that you want people to know most?
Mm. You already have it.
Mm.
You've already got it. You everything that you're seeking, it's already there. It's closer than you may realize. It's very, very close. It's right here. It's presence. It's in your heart. It's right here. And you can read books. You can go changing your life and seeking and upholding this story that what you're seeking is so distant and far away, and it's hard to get to, and you've tried and you've fallen and you failed, and whatever the story is, whatever the stories are, but it's right here. If you just allow yourself to stop for a moment, to not be afraid to stop, but just to be present here and feel. Maybe even you have to put your hand on your heart and feel it. Feel that warmth and that love inside of you. It is a light, and you're not alone. There is a divine, beautiful network of love, infinite, that's surrounding you and filling you. And you may not be able to feel it. You may feel distanced from it. You may feel stuck in the shadows, but it's in you because it's who you are. And you may feel separated. You may not even remember what it feels like. to feel present and to feel love and to feel pure and whole and clean and at peace. But it's there. And that's who you are. That's the essence of your being. That's your home. And the more you allow yourself permission to feel, to be present with however you're feeling, to cry, to be, you're coming back in contact with the truth of who you are, with that sacred light. You're birthing and nurturing self-love. And it will grow. It will take time, but it will grow. And you're not growing something from nothing. You're just gradually unfurling what's protecting you from what you perceive as a painful past or the truth. But just keep, if you going deep means you coming in contact with pain, you're not going deep enough. Keep going. Keep opening. Because the heart, beyond the pain, I'm seeing petals right now of a lotus just opening, and the heart within you is love. And you may have to get through some layers, but each time you let yourself cry, each time you choose love, each time you care for your body, each time you have the uncomfortable conversation, each time you breathe through those moments of discomfort, you're opening up even more, and more light is able to reveal itself, more love. And just keep practicing. Stay with it. You're doing it. And it's right here inside of you. You don't need anything outside of you. It's right here. You've got it. You are your own destination.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
That was beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
We knew it was going to be good.
Yeah, I knew it was going to be good. When you reached out to me, I was like, oh, okay, this is going to be a really beautiful, sacred conversation. And maybe it's going to be a series. Like, this is going to be part 1, because I feel like we have more conversations to be had.
I agree, for sure. I do. But what I do want to do now is thank you for agreeing to do this with me. Thank you for everything you've done to be in a position to be able to have a conversation like this, where we can talk about so many sacred things, about the heart, about love, about pain, grief, but in a way that is uplifting and will allow someone to be taken out of a dark place and to have hope and to feel like there is something to keep going and striving for. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you for everything, all the work you're doing to create these sacred containers for truth to be heard. You're opening this space with your intention. You're curating a space for people to open, to heal. So thank you for all the work you've done to get here.
I appreciate that so much. If people want to find you online or on social media, where can they find you?
Well, I have a few different websites at this point, because for so long my independent career was just Katie Gray. So katiegray.com, that's my personal website. Though, as I mentioned, over the past 10 years, the 15 years I've been working on it, but the past 10 years I've been offering the work of the empowered heart, which has become a methodology to help people through their experience of healing. And the main website is theempoweredheart.love. Instead of .com, it's .love. And that's where you can really learn about the methodology. And we recently launched the Empowered Heart Foundation, which is a nonprofit foundation where we are bringing this work to those who may not otherwise have access. And we've got that recently started. I'm the president of the foundation and have an incredible team and board members, and working on some really beautiful projects right now. A film series, a series of short films and interviews of people who have been through the journey and who have found healing, have discovered it, have awoken it in themselves. And we're also, there's so much where we are offering events. We'll have online events. I really want to bring this work into the educational systems, the incarceration systems. I've got some really big, beautiful goals of where to bring this frequency, this conversation, this work. So that's the empoweredheartfoundation.org. And that's where you can learn about, ways to help more people and for money to not be an element. How can I help as many people as possible find that light inside of themselves and not have it be an expensive course or something that they, have to experience stress or it feels out of reach. Like, how can it be within reach? And I'm open to suggestions and ideas. I feel like it's a communal effort, this foundation. So I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear from anyone who has an idea of, I've got an idea. How can we bring this sacred conversation to the youth, to the elders, to people who may not otherwise have access?
And then what about your books?
Right now, Amazon. Amazon's the best place to get the books. You just search for Katie Gray or The Empowered Heart. And it's the full-length book, Journey of the Empowered Heart, which has my personal stories. That's a big book. It's over 400 pages long. And essentially, Empowered Heart it's a methodology that maps everything out through a diagram, through a wheel of moving through the experience of trauma into the avoidance, into awareness, into resolution. And I introduced it through this big book and then realized not everyone can get through a 400 plus page book. I don't even know that I can at times. So we got to scale this back and just make a smaller version. So my editor, she trimmed out all the personal stories and we created the guidebook. So if you want to dive more deeply into my personal stories, you can go for Journey of the Empowered Heart. And if you just are curious about the methodology, the guidebook. And we're actually, Amisha is her name. She's an amazing editor. She's now trimming it down to create the pocket guide. And that will be done in the coming months so that in 40 pages, you can just really understand the method. And so we'll have a third book available soon. Yeah.
Thank you so much for that. Again, thank you for this. This has been such an incredible conversation. So heart-opening, warm. And yeah, let's make a series out of it if we can.
I'm in. Yep. To be continued, everyone. You've now listened to part 1. Part 2 and 3 are on their way.
All right. Well, again, thank you so much for this, Katie. Thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for who you are. Thank you for what you do. And thank you for how you do it.
Thank you for all of those things, Jalon. Thank you. Big hugs. I'm giving you a big hug. Thank you. Thank you.